Mike, let's start with the Derrick Henry news and how it impacts Alvin Kamara. I gave some thoughts on it in hour one. I'd like to delve a little deeper to get your thoughts. So Derrick Henry gets his long-term deal, 4 years, $50 million. What does that mean for Alvin Kamara?
Well, a couple of weeks back, I told you that's the blueprint. That's what Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara were waiting on. They were waiting on that deal. No one was going to touch McCaffrey's deal. That's just out of realm. But I think now, maybe a little north or a little south, that's what Kamara and Dalvin Cook are going to sign for. So it's the blueprint of what the Vikings and the Saints are going to look at. If you're going to sign either one, and both of them, most likely, will re-sign, I think that is the type of terms that you're looking at. And so the Titans have already given you the blueprint for it.
Mike, do you think that, just to be clear, do you think the Saints and the Vikings both extend their running backs this year, or they wait till next year?
I have always felt that at least one of the two would this year, and I strongly lean toward Kamara would. You look at what he's getting paid today. He's way down the list as far as paydays are concerned. He understands the risk of playing running back, and so does Cook. Both of them do. Wouldn't you want that deal in your pocket now if it's close? The answer is yes.
Is there a benefit, Mike, for Kamara getting healthy and playing this season out?
Listen, you might be able to stretch a little bit more money. You might be able to stretch a little bit more money with it. But my feeling is that you see now what the market's bringing to the table. You see it in front of your eyes now. Do you take that chance? You always take that chance of getting hurt or maybe not having a big season. So where would that lead you at this point? Again, Matt, I think that Derrick Henry deal, and I said it a couple weeks ago, and I'll repeat it now, that's the one both parties were looking at, both Cook and also Kamara, to try to cut a long-term deal. And listen, in dealing with the Titans radio network, and no, it's no secret because I work with them too. Mm-hmm. Man, I got too many damn jobs, but whatever. It all pays good, so whatever. I'm not going to complain. But look at how they structured. I mean, this offense today is really structured around Derrick Henry and what he's done probably the last 17, 18 games. He was splitting time the first couple years there. And he didn't get his groove as a runner. And all of a sudden it hits with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. Mm-hmm. You better damn well get that running back situation straight. Derrick Henry is a man out on that football field. Now, he's not a great receiver. He can catch the ball, but that's not the high point of his game. It's not the high point. You look at how the Saints are structured with Alvin. He is their lead back and their number 2 receiver. Okay? He's their number 2 guy. No matter how you cut it, he's the guy. Other than Michael Thomas, he's making the catches. So they're both structured differently, but you see the importance of both, of what they can do for their football teams. And to me, if I get that type of offer given to me, if I'm Kamara, I'm Cook, I sign it.
Mike,
no reason to wait it out.
Sorry to interrupt. Is there a potential, and we were talking about this in hour one, because there's, and maybe you could elaborate on this as well, because I'd love your thoughts. There's the potential that obviously this year's down revenue,
right,
it's going to have an impact on the salary cap. There's a debate over whether or not the PA wants to extend it out through like 2030, and I saw a report that some owners want it like now, but that would obviously cause the cap next year to plummet. Does that factor in for Kamara, that if he tries to wait out a better deal, that it could come in a year where You have a saturated market of running backs with all the guys that are set to hit free agency next year in a year where the cap could be lower, and so the number won't be as high?
I do think that's in the back of your mind if you his negotiating team. Now, I don't think they're going to stretch just to 2030. I mean, that's a long time. But I can say them come to a compromise of saying, okay, for the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to take a little bit. It's going to be cut a little bit. And if that's the case, then again, the advantage is take your deal now. And if I'm thinking like Kamara, I want as much money as I can get. Come on, everybody's in that spot. I don't care who you are. You want to try to get as much money as you can. You know your career is going to be short, and really short at running back. But in the back of my mind, I'm smart enough to think that this football team also has deals to be done with Demario Davis, with Ryan Ramczyk, with Marshawn Lattimore. It's in the back of my mind. Listen, that none of those deals are going to come cheap. None of them. So if you get a deal close to this, excuse me, I'm taking it. Again, the blueprint has been laid out for you, and for what they do for their franchises. And Cook's a really good receiver too, because he's almost a carbon. He's a little bit more heavy-duty runner when he's been healthy, and that's been the issue now. So Cook's got to think of that too. Man, I ain't stayed healthy for a long period of time. And we saw Alvin get nicked up last year. It's part of the play in the position. So, Matt, I'm just telling you the same thing I told you a couple of weeks back. This is the blueprint of what both guys will get. It may be a little north of that. It may be a little south of that. But it'll be in that zip code. And that was the deal that they were both sides were waiting to see how the Titans would handle it. Johnny Robinson, I talked to Coach. I still call him Coach Rob. He got his coaching start down here at Nicholls State University. Unbelievable. You talk about a ride. He was a GA here. He took the position of Ed Ogeron. Ed coached at Nicholls 1 year. Who takes his place? John Robinson. Then he becomes the linebackers coach, and I got a phone call one day. And he says, hey, guess what? He said, I just got a new job. I said, okay, where are you coaching? He said, I'm not. I said, what do you mean? He said, no. He says, I'm taking a position. I'll be a regional scout for the New England Patriots. And so John left Nicholls, became a regional scout for the Patriots, went through that run with them, early 2000s, got a nice little bump up and went to Tampa Bay and became their director of college scouting there. And all of a sudden, I see he's up for the general manager's job with the Tennessee Titans. And so I contacted him, and he told me, hey, listen, the interview went well. I don't know what's going to be. He had no idea I was working for the Titans radio network. So when he found out, he was like, okay. He's like, how did you get this? Come on, you got to explain to me. I said, man, listen, how did I get many of them? I mean, it's just unreal. But sometimes being in the right place, right time help. And so it goes to show you, when he told me this a couple of weeks back, he said, I really believe we're going to get a deal done. I was surprised. Adam Schefter a couple of days ago wrote that it doesn't look good. That's not what Rob had told me. That's not what Coach had told me at that point. And so, yesterday had duties to do, and I look on my cell, sure enough, coming to a deal. Exactly what he had told me. I think it'll be a late hour deal, but we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done with Derrick. It's good for us. It's good for him. Sure enough, he got it done. And if I'm Kamara and I'm Cook, I see that. That's exactly what I go for. It's the exact same thing.
Do you think the Saints will give him 12-5?
I think it'll be in that zip code. For what he is for this team. And, okay, running back, because that's the first thing somebody throws out at you that don't see the structure. Oh, well, running backs, a dime a dozen. How many of them can catch the ball like Kamara can? What's the one thing a year ago, because he came to one of our camps, first thing he tells me, I'm tired of hearing you telling me I can't catch the ball. Watch what I do this year. Leonard Fournette. Look at Leonard's numbers last year in comparison to other years of him catching the ball. Look at what he did as a receiver coming out of the backfield.
All right, I'm looking it up right now because I don't remember.
There wasn't many guys that at running back that caught more. I think it was maybe 4. So, what you see here is those guys know to be that all-purpose player. Man, listen, I want to catch the ball.
He went from 36 catches as a rookie, 22 in year 2 to 76 last year.
Yeah, that's just a tad more. Come on, Leonard knew exactly what somebody was going to throw at him.
Right.
Oh, well, you're not involved in the passing game. Oh, yeah? Well, look what I did. Now, Leonard's in a tough spot.
Yeah.
Because, man, on that team, well, fortunately, he's got DJ to kind of get some of the defenses off the line of scrimmage. But, if I'm playing Jacksonville, what I do, I'm going to crowd the line of scrimmage. I'm going to stop Fournette, and I'm saying, if you're going to beat me with Gardner Minshew, go ahead. But this may take a while.
Mike D, let's switch gears from Saints, talk some LSU here in this segment. This is watch list week. And so the position by position, they start to release all the watch lists. And let's be real. We know that this ain't worth anything at this point except for having conversation about it. But I was interested that Myles Brennan was not on the Davey O'Brien list and that none of the LSU running backs were among the 76 Doak Walker Award watch list members when some running backs, Mike, who were on the list had half the stats that a guy like Ty Davis Price did a year ago. I want to talk expectations within the LSU offense for this season. Let's start under center with Myles Brennan. We haven't seen him play, Mike, not significantly anyway. So what is realistic for Brennan in this offense?
It's going to be similar, but, one of the things that Steve has talked about a lot is you got to play to the strength of the quarterback. You got to play to his strengths. And some of that's a little bit differently done than how Joe was. The biggest question mark I have for me is third down plays, critical plays. How does Myles handle it? How does he handle that? What I call pressure throws. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily people in his face, but I'm talking about I got to make this throw. I got to keep the drive alive. How well he handles those sort of situations. He's immensely gifted. He's got a stronger arm than Joe Burrow, but again, that doesn't tell you the whole story. It's about decision making and playing big in the biggest games. What we're going to remember Joe Burrow for was playing big in the biggest games. If it was against Texas, Florida, Alabama, Clemson, what he did against Oklahoma, they should have arrested him. It was lethal of what he was doing against them in that particular game. The Georgia game in the SEC championship, we remember the Fiesta Bowl, against Central Florida. And so you remember those moments with Joe. And Myles has got to now create those moments for himself. You can't say that he's going to do the exact same thing Joe did because they're two different type football players. But, man, he's got a lot of talent at wide receiver. He's got, from everything I hear, man, this Eric Gilbert is sort of a tilt-the-field type player. Mm-hmm. He's got a tremendous backfield. Now, which one emerges? Last year at this time, was Clyde on that list for running backs?
Mike, I'd have to go back and check because I really honestly don't remember. But he might have been, Mike, because of the major game he had against Georgia in 2018.
But no one was talking about Clyde being the guy.
No doubt.
Because all I heard, even early into the season, was, man, we need to see more of John Emery.
Yep,
we need to see more of Tyron Davis Price. I got to the point, I hated to look at myself because you would get these messages over and over, and for the same dudes. My thing is, what did you want Clyde to do? Now, listen, after probably game 4, it stopped. Oh, and the same thing on talk shows. No matter what you did, man, somebody wanted, we need to see more of the freshman running backs. Really? There is a reason Clyde's in that game. He was your best pass protector in the backfield, and also too as a receiver. He was unbelievable.
By the way, Mike, he was not on the Doak Walker list last year.
Okay, so that tells you the whole story about the list is useless.
Right.
Here's the most useless list: the Joe Moore Award. Would you have put LSU's offensive line on that Joe Moore preseason list? No way. You're not putting that on there. And so it does go to show you and how well, and I think it's the maturity, and that Ed has went out and gotten coaches that has been able to squeeze all the vitamin C they can out the orange. And listen, that's what coaching's about, getting the very most out of your player. No one a year ago called your show or any show I did and said, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be a star, and he's going to be a first-round pick. Not even the most ardent LSU fan would have said that. And, would somebody call in and say, man, listen, LSU's offensive line is going to be the best in the country. They're going to win the Joe Moore Award. Come on. You didn't hear that. So you saw how well they were coached and how well they played together, and coaching still matters in this world, still does. So I don't, it's hard to answer about Myles because we haven't seen him as the guy. But it's all going to come down to how well he can convert third down plays, pressure, and how big he plays in the biggest games. Because fair or unfair, that's how – don't we look at Tom Brady a certain way because of what he's done in the biggest games?
Sure.
Don't we look at what, growing up as a kid, what I saw Terry Bradshaw do, 4 Super Bowls. What Staubach, even though I wasn't a Cowboy fan and never will be, but Staubach winning those games, what we saw Aikman do later on, what Montana did, what Elway did. We remember those big games and then being able to make the plays in critical spots. So these watch lists is great to talk about, but a year ago, LSU wasn't on that Joe Moore list. Clyde wasn't on the right backs list. And so, with Joe, I think you had a little bit on the resume with him. And I think most people who watched LSU saw he had sort of changed the way the quarterback position was, even in that 1 year. And I think it's difficult what he did. And, I hear one of the national announcers bash him about he had a bad year. Bad year? You mean the same guy that took you to 7 overtimes against Texas A&M? He had a bad game against – I didn't think he played well against Florida, and nobody played well against Alabama. But you look at it, his offensive line didn't protect him well 2 years ago, and the receiving core at certain times let him down too. First thing Joe Brady told me, Mike, I'm getting into that game, and they are going to catch 500 passes a day. I don't care if I got to throw every one of them. We got to get that down because we cannot have drives missed because of receivers dropping the football. It was a rarity to see LSU drop the football a year ago. But 2 years ago, it was a different story. And so it's an interesting ride for LSU where I think a year ago we were talking about, they had some young backs, young receivers, how well they mature. But their offensive line looked to be that it was going to be improved because you had some people coming back.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest question mark this year is going to be along the offensive line. And I felt that it would be better because I knew one thing. Lloyd Cushenberry was the center. Man, and he is one of the most underrated players for what that team did a year ago. And handling things up front, a new offense, everything that was rared up, and you rarely saw pressure that he was getting beat in the middle. And so now the question mark is, what's going to happen to the other positions? We do know, a lot about Austin. We've seen Ed Ingram. How well the center position kind of works out. And that's where, as we talked about a couple weeks ago and talked about even last week with Liam. Here you have a guy that may be the right guy for 2020. A big, smart, really good technician, and he may have found his spot. It wasn't going to be at guard. If you look how he's built, he's either going to be a center or a right tackle. It was going to be one of the two. He may have found his spot. I talked to Steve Court. In fact, it was an article that I wrote last weekend about this transition. And he said, you know what was the hardest thing for me? He said, I had never played center in high school in Colorado. I go to Arkansas, they recruited me as a defensive tackle. So he said, that was a guy in front of me that was pretty good. His name was Dan Hampton.
Right.
And so Steve was, the deal is, no, you got to play offensive. He became an All-American offensive guard. The Saints pick him. Bum says, you know what? Too many 3-4 teams, Steve. We got to move you to center. They had an older center in John Hill, who was a good technician, but he was small, on the smaller side. And Steve said, Mike, I could not get the center to quarterback exchange when he had his hands under me, right? I was coming off the ball so quickly and so fast, it didn't work. I could get the deep snap down, but he said the under center, I couldn't get it. And they had Kenny Stabler there. And, Snake had worked with a few centers before. And he said, I was so frustrated. I thought they were going to cut me. And he said, finally, one day in practice, he said, man, I messed up the first couple snaps. And Snake said, give me that ball. They called him Jumbo. Jumbo, give me that ball. And he said, Snake took it, and he heaved it about 35 yards out of bounds. He said, I know what's your problem, Steve. He said, that's a right-handed ball, and I'm a left-handed quarterback. Now, listen, you got to know, Snake, that sounded about right. And he said, you know what? He calmed me down. And he said, listen, I'm just going to ride you a little bit more and wait till I can secure it. And he said, I never had an issue afterwards with it. It was just an adjustment that Snake had to kind of stay with him a little bit longer. And he said, when I had Bobby, when I had Dave Wilson, we both sort of talked about how I would snap, and we got it down. But he said that was a huge adjustment for him. But he said, it's not what you might have thought. You might have thought it wouldn't have been the deep snap. He said, I got that down pretty quickly. Under center. Now, LSU doesn't do much of that anyway. So here's my thing. If Liam has got that down, and smart as he is to make all those calls, he may have found himself the guy. And if that's the case, I feel much better about the offensive line.
No doubt. They get much deeper at guard, too, if that's the case. Let's jump into some of these really the major NFL contract news was Myles Garrett and Dak Prescott. Let's start with Myles Garrett with incredible deal, $125 million. What was your reaction when you saw the deal?
Yeah, I just had a feeling it would be in that category. I'd heard from an agent friend of mine that they were working on it. And so do you want to be judged by your worst moment in your career? And we all saw it, national TV and Myles losing control at that point. But, man, he's one heck of a football player. And did we, you heard – maybe he wasn't this guy that gives you 100% on every snap. I don't know too many big men that do. I mean, there's a little bit of variance with that point. But, boy, he is really good, and he is becoming a rarity. No, he's becoming that position when you can excel is you become the unicorn because there's not a lot of guys at his age that can do what he can do. And so, man, listen, I got to pay him. And he's a special talent. Again, I'm not trying to kind of, sugarcoat what happened at the end with him. And he paid the price for it. And he got suspended. But all of us in any profession, we've done something, and we go back and say, what was I doing, at that point in time? Myles is a super talented edge rusher. Name me another guy in this league that can do what he can do.
I mean, the one who might be in that category eventually, Daniil Hunter?
He might be.
Might get there.
He
certainly a great start.
And so okay, so you can name one.
Right, but the point remains, right.
The point remains is guys in their early to mid-20s, there's not a lot of them. That's why, I've suggested to some of the older defensive linemen, listen, you're thinking about retiring, you might want to stay. Man, ain't nobody beating you out. Ain't nobody beating you out of that deal. So, okay, there's the Hunters of the world, and there's Myles Garrett, but and then you start to think about it, and Jacksonville's got a guy that I think is a really good pass rusher. He's not so great against the run because, his intention is to get in the backfield and rush the quarterback. So if I see him out there, I run the ball. That's what the Saints did. They sort of ran the football at Yannick a little bit when they played him. So it's he's a rarity. And, again, coming out of college, how many guys – I mean, other than the Bosa's,
Yeah.
That's about it. So it's almost like the Manning family. Well, you got the Bosa family at defensive end. Eventually, those guys are going to cash in too. But the list is so few and far between. And so, to me, I don't have an issue with it. And I think he's a big-time player at a position that is now becoming the hardest to find as a standout player in college and pro football.
Did the Saints give a big exhale by extending Cam Jordan last year and not?
You better believe it.
Right, no doubt.
Man, because, you look at it, Cam's the complete player. Cam was not a noted pass rusher coming out of Cal. He was what you would call a good pass rusher, but he was really good against the run. In his first year, numbers there was small as a passer. And now he's developed this repertoire by working hard and working at his game and moves and counter moves where now he's one of the best pass rushers in pro football. But he's also one of the elite against the run. That's where it's hard, Matt, to find a guy that can rush the quarterback but also can play the run well. Those guys are really limited, and Cam's one of them. So, yeah, they made a pretty good deal with Cam because of his talents, not only in his ability to affect the quarterback and pressure, but also his play against the run is stellar. It's at the highest level, and you can make a pretty good argument. He is the most complete defensive end in pro football today. It's not like, say, with Aaron Donald, where I think it's clear-cut. He's the best interior player. And when you look at it, the other guy we didn't talk about, but Chris Jones.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Since he entered the league in 2016, there's only one guy that has had more quarterback sacks than Chris Jones as an interior player, Aaron Donald. Okay, now Chris, he's one of those guys that, depending on game to game, his play against the run varies. But boy, can he rush the quarterback, and he's a straight line shot, and he's very effective. So you can see now, it's just not the quarterbacks and the receivers and the DBs getting paid. Man, those defensive linemen, it's a rare position to find, especially an edge guy like a Cam Jordan, like a Myles Garrett, like the Bosa's. That's why they get picked where they get picked, because they so good. And when you look at it, man, if you can play the run pretty well, you're going to get paid. You got a lot of zeros behind them checks.
4 years, $85 million for Chris Jones. Dak Prescott, though, did not get his extension.
No
He'll play this year under the tag. So no surprise, you say, Mike, but what does that mean for Dak short and long? Well, short obviously means he'll play this year under the tag, but what does that mean for Dak and his future in Dallas?
I think he's going.
Okay, wow.
I think he's going after this year. You wonder a little bit because of the relationship. Jerry has always talked up Dak. It looked as though they were very close to a deal a couple times, and then at the end, there was something added or taken away. They wanted to shorten the years, and they wanted more upfront money. And the one thing, because I deal with one, when you get people a certain age and you whiz them off, they're gonna take that to their grave. They're never gonna put that aside. Never gonna put that aside. And Jerry's the type of guy that I think felt as though he had a deal in place with Dak, not only once but twice, and then you messed with him. So you messed with the multi-billionaire owner. Okay, and he's at a certain age, and I'm not real happy about it. You embarrassed me. Because you know what? I turn on TV, and guess what they're talking about? They're talking about me, and it ain't in a positive manner. And when you mess with them, it's difficult to repair. I'm not saying it's 100%, but Dak and his group would have to make amends on this part. And I think he's elsewhere. And when you look across the league, Indianapolis would seemingly be a spot. You know, Phillip Rivers getting up in age. He's got that 1 year. Jacoby Brissett is there. What Jacoby's on the books for, like 20, 21 million. Phillip, 23, 24. And, you know, the Colts, that payroll, I could afford to pay Dak.
Yeah.
In a manner that he wants to get paid. It would make a lot of sense there. And I just think for Jerry that you got him upset. And when you get to a certain age, it's hard to rebuild the fence that you burned.
Yeah. Mike, one thing's for certain. Next year's quarterback carousel, Dak, Jameis, at Cam potentially, it's going to be really, really interesting next year.
And
how all that spins.
I'll throw you another one.
Okay.
I think Matt Stafford becomes available.
Wow. I mean, at this point, Mike, I'd believe damn well anything at this point, man. With the way 2020's gone, Mike, if you told me they were going to play on the moon next year, I might believe you. Ask Mike. How about this one right out of the chute? Ask Mike. Dak to the Saints in 2021 if Breeze retires?
I doubt that. I doubt it. I mean, the Saints, the payroll and what it would cost you financially would be huge. Would be huge. And I know Sean likes Dak a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if he's asking for what, you know, supposedly is being said, you know, how do you do the other contracts? You know, so it's a great question, but I would say it's a long shot.
Josh Higgins on YouTube asked Mike, do you think Coach O and Bo Pelini will work well together in game?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Ed would give suggestions sometimes to Dave, but Dave really ran the defense. Mm-hmm. You know, Dave really ran that. And so I think him and Bo almost on a little bit better wavelength for what they want to do with the talent at hand. And so I think it'll work seamless.
Ask Mike, thoughts on LSU wide receiver, it says signing, but commitment, Chris Hilton from Zachary.
Well, you know, I made this comment before. He reminds me so much of Devontae Smith coming out of a meet.
That's a good comp.
Now, if you look at how they built and what they could do, it's similar. And Devontae was he was a sort of a soft-spoken guy, didn't say too much or nothing. And Hilton's the same way too. You know, we all remember him, man, on that little short pass. And he runs through the entire West Monroe defense.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in his little thing, he sort of patted the back. I was not that far away, and he sort of pats the matting in the back, walks off.
Yep.
And you look at Devontae Smith, and he is the type of guy that can blow the top off of coverage, but also he's really good at catching that little screen pass, and then, man, he maneuvers, and he's up the field. So the comp would be Devontae Smith. He's very similar in how he's built, his foot speed, and what he does really well. And so that's who I would comp him as, and that's a pretty good comp.
Mike, we're looking at the play against West Monroe right now. Of course, the game was broadcast on CST, and there's the little pad on the
Yep. I was on the other side, and I could see just a little pop, pop, and he was off.
What a play!
You want it.
I mean, sophomore in high school. For that, yeah, you're right. I mean, it was a remarkable play. That with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter of the state championship game, and you house one from 75 on a little slip screen. Let's see, Mike. We got 2 minutes left. Ask Mike, other next big prospect from the Bayou region other than Mason Smith.
As a young man at Thibodeau High School, big baby. He's a sophomore. Ed Ogeron offered him in the 9th grade. He's 6'2", 260 pounds. Next time you get Turk on, Ernest Harvey, he's working at Camp Mula. He's built a little bit differently than Mason. Right off the bat, when I saw him and how quick he is with his feet, first thing that popped my mind, Henry Thomas.
Okay.
That's who he reminds me of, Henry Thomas. And so, man, he is special. He's a special football player and a big man, and he's going to play defensive tackle. But I would say right now he's 6'2", in that 255, 260 range. And, he sort of tilts it a little bit. He's a big-time player, and you haven't heard a lot about him, but you will. And here's a guy that 14, 15 years old, and Junior's out there with a scholarship offer. So it goes to show you, man, he spotted that real quick. No, he's a big-time talent here, and I think you'll see him blossom similar to what Mason did when he was a 10th grader. Because when I first wrote that article on Mason, man, I had people from all these other sites, man, who's Mason Smith? Well, we don't have him. Yeah, they ain't asking. Now they act like they Columbus and they found America. I mean, I ain't kidding you. No, first time I saw him play was, man, I haven't seen too many guys in this part of the woods that can run and move like what Mason Smith can. And Big Baby is built differently. But, man, he is some skilled, and he's a really good technician at this stage of his career.
Mike, you're the best as always, man. We appreciate you. We'll do it again next week.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.